Hi everyone, my name is Teacher MJ and the videos that I'm making are intended for the secondary students of KIS International School here in Vientiane, Laos. If you are not from KIS, it's okay. I hope that you can learn something from this video. Currently, we are in isolation to protect ourselves from the coronavirus infections. However, learning never stops. So before we start this video, I'd like to make sure that you have the following things with you. You have your course book, your notebook, and a pen. You can watch this video in many places, but I prefer you find a comfortable place and I suggest you wear your headphones. You can pause the video to take down notes and repeat if you need so. If you have any questions, you write them down and don't hesitate to send them to me in WhatsApp so I can address your questions. So if you are ready, I am ready too. So it's time to study geography with Teacher MJ. Hi guys, welcome back to our discussion videos, and I appreciate that you are doing your job very well in submitting all your activities and worksheets that I'm sending you. Can you hear the ambulance? Yeah, well anyway, welcome to our last video discussion for inquiry number 2, and before I proceed with the lessons, I will be going back to the questions that I sent you yesterday and try to explain what would be the answers for those questions that I sent you, and then we will move on to unit 2.5, which is the final lesson for for inquiry number 2. And then by Thursday, we will be moving on to studying about earthquakes in New Zealand in unit 3. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so we have a few questions that we need to go through. The questions that I sent you yesterday. It says here, the Arctic is being compared to Mount Everest as its tourism dramatically increased. Describe the result of the mountaineering equipment advances in the tourism of Mount Everest. Now, it's quite interesting that we are talking about the Arctic, but it causes about Mount Everest, which is very far away from the Arctic. But somehow it will give you a comparison of what may happen to the Arctic if people will not be vigilant of what they're doing, especially when it comes to tourism. Don't get me wrong, but tourism is a good thing that could help our country's GDP, but it also has its downfall, and we will be discussing that as we go along. So when we say mountaineering equipment advances, it means that the devices and the tools that people use to go up the mountain are now advanced, or because of technology, they don't need to bring heavy equipment going up there, but they will have equipment that could help them survive the harsh environment in the Everest with lighter, smaller, and hiker-friendly materials. And what were the results? So in our book, it says here that it has become much easier for people with no climbing experience to ascend the mountain. Okay, all they have to do is to pay the amount of $80,000, and they will be given like a package of what they need to bring in order to survive going up Mount Everest. Okay, so it becomes easy. It becomes like a value, how can I say it, a package, just like that. It's like a total package that will be given to you, and then you get it and you go up the mountains, some sort of that. And in relation to what was asked in the first question, there is a person named Graham Hoyland, and he said that Mount Everest is not a wilderness experience, it is a McDonald's experience. What do you think he meant by this? Now, some of you guys answered it differently, but this is a metaphor for going to McDonald's. Now, when you go there, you don't necessarily buy separately for a burger, another fries, a Coke, and an ice cream maybe, but you buy it as a meal, as a set, okay? And then it becomes very fast. You can just take it away or just eat by yourself. And that has become the experience of these people. They go in, they pay, and they go right away. It's not a question of how skillful you are right now, but if you have the money, if you have the will to go and to experience this, it's just like a fast food restaurant. That's why the experience is more of a McDonald's experience and not a wilderness experience anymore. Okay? And explain why Mount Everest was the site for the world's highest traffic jam. Interesting, but in 2012, 234 climbers queued for 2.5 hours to reach the summit. When you say queued, they lined up, maybe along the course going up to the summit. Imagine 234 people waited there for 2.5 hours in that very harsh environment with their oxygens, with all of their equipment hanging in there to wait for people to go down for them to move forward. It's going to be more challenging because you are not in a street, you are in a top of a mountain with less oxygen, with cold temperature. I don't think it's a very good experience. So that's why it's called, they termed the world's highest traffic jam. And also Everest has been termed as the world's highest rubbish dump. Oh, this is interesting because they just don't dump trash and oxygen cylinders in there. It has, strangely, it has lots of dead bodies in it. Now remember that when our body could not take in a certain situation, we shut off. Our bodies need to pass out. And some people, when they pass out, they don't wake up anymore. They don't even know that they died already. If you look at videos online about people who died in Mount Everest, some of them were not found because they have fallen into quarries, trenches, and probably covered with snow. They sometimes, when oxygen is too thin, our brain will shut us off and will let us sleep or let us pass out. And then because the temperature did not change for our bodies to recover, chances are you will not be able to wake up anymore. So these people died without them knowing that they died. And also, there's a picture on page 31 here that let us see how much garbage these mountaineers leave. So I hope that when you grow up, if you have a fascination of going up mountains or mountaineering, you have to bring your trash back or properly dispose them, not leave them on top of a mountain. In your opinion, do you think this problem may happen to the Arctic too? I'm basing it on my own opinion, but I have seen a lot of places that were exploited, and mainly because of tourism. They have experienced lots of problem with garbage management. Also, um, settlement become bigger and bigger. More land will be needed to um, be made into places where tourists can stay. And I believe that it may happen, it could happen, and especially that a lot of snow are melting, and we're going into an interglacial period where the earth is getting warm again, and there will be more place for these buildings to be created. And as more and more people visit, even just a small percent of an increase for the number of tourists that will come, then it could greatly affect the the Arctic, especially with again trash management and using its natural resource. So that's what I think. It could happen as well to the Arctic, and of course we don't want that to happen. Okay, moving on. We will be discussing about our last lesson, which is 4.5. I'm not going to let you do activity to create a tourist ecotourism leaflet, and it's quite interesting if you read page 32 to 33 that they used the Dondang Island here in Laos as an example of a brochure or leaflet for tourism. We don't need to read through that, but we will go through our last lesson, which is about climate change in the Arctic. So will climate change eventually alter or change whatever is at in the Arctic right now? I will just discuss a little bit about climate change. Again, climate change is a product or a result of global warming. Climate change can happen without global warming, but again, definitely when there's global warming, climate changes. Okay. So let's take a look at this photo of the Arctic in September of 1984 and September of 2016. What do you see? Yep, you're right. There is a decrease in the ice cover area in the Arctic. So the Arctic is affected more than in many other places in the world. Again, because of the increase in the temperature, the ice cover has decreased by up to 15% since the year 1970. And again, when ice starts to melt, it's like a chain reaction. It's like a domino effect. And I believe you have learned this when we tackled the lesson for the Permian period, when the Earth become warm, and it could be somehow similar to what's going to happen if the Arctic will continue to melt. And later on, I'm going to discuss more about what could be the possible effects of this. So the WWF, or the World Wildlife Fund, I think it is, predicted these things. So by 2080, the sea ice in summer will have disappeared completely. So that's how many years from now? It's 2020, 60 years from now. Remember that during summer, the Arctic normally will be around 10 degrees and ice will start to melt. But in the summer of 2080, it will have disappeared completely. So that means it becomes like a regular ocean. And by 2100, I won't be alive by that time, but the temperature will be 7 degrees higher. That is 7 degrees, not 70. 7 degrees higher than of the Industrial Revolution. Now, during the Industrial Revolution, or the time wherein machines were started to be used, in places like the US and the UK. There was a notable change in the temperature of the globe. It has become higher around 0.5 degrees up to 1 degree, and it's again even just a point or just 1 degree elevation in the temperature, it will do a lot of change. And it says here 7 degrees higher. That means it will be up to 8 per degrees to increase by 2100, so it will be a lot warmer. And what will be the results? There will be a sea level, or a rise in sea level by 1 meter. So no more Maldives, no more South Pacific Ocean islands, because they will be overcome by the ocean. Okay, so it will be higher, and a lot of people will lose places, will drown. If you go to the internet, there will be like videos on which places may drown if the water will increase because of global warming. And we also have the albedo effect. Now, the albedo effect is just simply a science experiment, or an effect that something that has a lighter color can reflect light, while darker colors will absorb light. See? Excuse me. There was an experiment that there were 2 pieces of paper put into a patch of snow, a black paper and a white paper. The white paper, when they took off the paper, the snow is intact, while underneath the black paper, the snow melted. Okay, so that means the darker colors will absorb more light and heat energy. So here in this picture, I will explain to you the albedo effect. Light surfaces will reflect light. As you can see here, there's the sunlight, and this ice will just basically reflect it. But the ocean, on the other hand, which is significantly darker, will absorb more heat. And when it absorbs more heat, the sea becomes warmer, and it will melt more ice in the Arctic. So that would be a problem during with this continuous warming of the Earth. It will have an albedo effect, which will be significantly warm the ocean, and will melt more ice because of the absorption of heat in our oceans. And here are other impacts that may happen when global warming and climate change will continue. Our beloved polar bears will become extinct, and as you can see here, he is crying because he doesn't have ice to stay anymore. Other impacts is that the Arctic fish species may disappear and will continue to deplete because also of overfishing, and as well as the temperature that is getting higher and higher. Ocean currents and cold air fronts may stop to move. Example, the Gulf Stream. So a Gulf Stream is a movement of air. Usually this happens because, again, there is cold air front and warm air front in the middle of the Earth, and the cold air front in the North Pole or the South Pole. So they will need to continue to move so that the Earth can maintain its temperature. But because there is no cold air front anymore, we don't have ice anymore in this warming, then these streams of air will also stop moving. Same as the current of the ocean. The ocean will continue is moving because of the difference in temperature from the North Pole or the South Pole and the equator. And they continue to move. And because of that, when there is no cold areas in our planet anymore, then these ocean movements will not happen any longer. And last one, because of the absence of ice in the Arctic, it means that there will be not much of ice for these ships to move around, and it will be a free way for them to exploit and to get more resources in the ocean because there's no how can I say, barriers anymore for them to move around. So imagine right now they're having problems to move around the Arctic because of the thick ice. Now when the thick ice will become melted, then there's a way for them to move around and to drill and to get all those resources, and the Arctic will lost its natural resource. So those are the impacts or possible impacts of climate change to the Arctic, and that would be a lot. Right now, again, scientists and people are still cynical and skeptic about if this is true or not. However, it's not going to harm us if we'll try to be more considerate on what we do and to respect the Mother Nature, and to make sure that we are not exploiting too much of its resources, and to protect as well whatever is left in here, so that we will be more sustainable and that the future will be able to use the same resource that we have right now as in the next generation without us being or harming the environment. All right, and to acknowledge your learning today and to give you some points for our activity, I need you to go to Enquiry 2.4 to 2.5 discussion on ThinkWave and answer this question. You can use whatever method or way you can answer this. It says here, out of the impacts that I have discussed, which impact moved you the most or somehow affected you in a personal way? And what could be small or simple steps you can do to prevent these things from happening in the Arctic? Okay, I appreciate if you use your own words and to express your feelings about these impacts to the Arctic. Okay, and thank you for listening, and this will be the end of Unit 2 for us. I will see you on the next video for earthquakes in New Zealand. Thank you very much, guys. Have yourself a great day.